fix in Washington, D.C.
Yes, because it seems to me that you talk about this community and all Americans desire for certainty. Washington seems to be a fundamental challenge to certainty. It was really tied up with what's going to get the DC and there is no possibility of sequestration. I'd like to think about how you'd like to see the grand bargain and deficit debt reduction. What the contours is that what the bargain ought to be from each of the perspectives in terms of budget reductions and tax increases.
Yeah, I think that the first thing that we have to do is we've got sequestration that's out there. And President Obama put sequestration together, and basically it was set up to where it would never happen. The super committee was going to come through. Well, the super committee failed. We've sent several proposals over to the Senate there's been no response whatsoever. So we're working valiantly to make sure sequestration doesn't happen. Especially, if you look at all the defense contractors that we have in this area with aerospace and all of the above, Woodward and others, trying to stop sequestration. There's people in the Senate side that don't want it to stop. They want to pay the price, so to speak. This is very, very serious. This is a consequence that we've got to take care of. When it comes to the fiscal cliff that's coming, my opponent talks about millionaires and billionaires. Well, this is the tax that she talks about.
I want to hear what your judgment is the proper balance between budget cuts and revenue increases.
Yeah. What the proper balance is is we have to address the debt drivers. If we were to take every penny from the millionaires, we can only run the government for several months. That does not fix the problem. What we've got to do is we've got to address Medicare. We can no longer afford to bury our heads in the sand, and we've actually done that with our budget. We can do a few cuts with a few dollars of revenues, or a dollar worth of revenues, what they want to do out there. But what happens is the fiscal cliff continues to grow, and eventually it's huge, and there's no recovery. So what we have to do is go after the debt drivers. We've got to fix Medicare. I'm unwilling to bury my head in the sand. It goes, they say people are going to end Medicare as you know it. Well, it ends on its own in 2024 if we choose to do like our colleagues on the other side of the aisle have done and do nothing. We have to fix it. We can't raise $714 billion out of it and shift it over to the Affordable Health Care Act. I'm a big believer, promises made, promises kept. The one way we do fix Medicare is 55 and older remains untouched. They keep exactly what they have. 54 and younger, bring competition in, and allows people to pick and choose from a couple of companies. Competition's a good thing. It's no different than any business around. If you just have one person doing it, well, then they can charge what they want. They don't have to have a superior product. What we do is we save it for future generations. And you know what? We're willing to listen to the other side if they'll come to the table. Just show up at the table with an idea rather than demagogue what's going on. But if we stop the tunnels for turtle, all of the swamp mice in California, all the wasteful spending, and then if we've got to have revenue increases, then we take a look at it. But to increase taxes so the government can continue the wasteful spend, we can't do it. All the duplicative services we have out there, we have to fine-tooth comb through everything.
So he's saying tax increases are off the table?
I'm not. I'm just saying I believe that if we go in and we do appropriate cuts, duplicative services, waste, fraud, and abuse, Medicare, for example. I mean, we had a doctor that was billing for like 6,000 patients per month. When you bring the private sector into Medicare, they're not going to allow that to happen. It's a lot of that kind of stuff that has to be eliminated. Even in the Department of Defense, we still have cuts that can be done there. There's a company that makes their simulators to drive semi-tractor here in our district. They're $25,000. DOD buys them for $250. Why are we $250,000? Why are we buying them? It's that kind of stuff. And having everybody going in and taking a look. And it's really about leading by example also. Returning $110,000 of my budget last year. That's the most money that's ever been given back. No pay increases, rejecting the congressional pension. It's about doing the right thing and showing others that we can do it ourselves before we have to ask others to do it.
May I respond to a few of those points and then get into your question, Mark, if that's okay. I have to. I get a little bit of a kick out of his statement about giving money back. He, out of every member of Congress, every single member of Congress, he is number one at spending the most on taxpayer-funded mailing. And I would argue that they're campaign-style taxpayer-funded mailings. He is now up to $446,000. So while my opponent is talking about giving money back, which is a fraction of what you've spent on taxpayer-funded mailings, there's a disconnect. You ran just 2 years ago, and how quickly perhaps you've forgotten how you criticized your opponent at the time for spending a seventh of that amount. And so it's so a little disingenuous on that. But now I'll get to your questions, Mark. You started out by asking about sequestration. My opponent voted for that, and what I heard you just say, Congressman, is that there was hope that wouldn't ever happen. That was never supposed to happen. Well, it did happen, and what's the part about sequestration that is so damaging to our region is that our number one employer everywhere in the entire 17th congressional district is the arsenal, and we've got to make sure that stays strong. Now, we've gotten out of the Iraq war, we're getting out of the Afghanistan war, and so you have to figure then, how can you keep an arsenal strong? Well, private-public partnerships, that is one way to do that. I would argue that we actually have many steps in the process in manufacturing all in place there to remain strong. We don't have research and development that's part of the Rock Island Arsenal. I would argue that might be a way that we could even grow there. But to be critical of the sequestration process when you voted for it is really no different than you going to the ribbon cutting of an Amtrak station when you voted against that funding. What I would do, number one, the tax breaks for millionaires. I've said from very early on, I believe that those need to expire. I have somewhat of a compromise on that. The presidents and the Democratic parties, their proposal is more for those making under $250,000, that those tax cuts stay in effect and they go away for those making over. I'm saying let's do that for those making under $1 million. Okay, so somewhat of a compromise, but also addressing the fact that we have many family farmers, we have many small business owners who I think could be helped by that. So I look at that as one way to compromise and also to help us look at our budget issue. There is a government accountability report that was issued 2 years ago. It has sat on the shelf. It's a nonpartisan group that looks at waste, redundancy. One of the proposals is to merge the Small Business Administration with Commerce. I think that makes sense. Another is to take a look at all the job training programs. There are 44 job training programs, and there are 47, and 44 of them overlap and are redundant. So, there are many of those. It has $100 billion in savings. That's one step in the right direction. Tax loopholes. We've talked about those also for quite a while to big oil. I would propose that those go away and that we strengthen our green economy. We have some good movement on that here in our own district. We have a solar farm in Galena, so just west of here. We have wind farms in Henry County. We have a USDA lab in Peoria that is researching other uses for biofuels. What other plant-based could be used for biofuels? So, I would propose that as well. And then also, we've talked about outsourcing quite a bit, but the money that is over there, sitting overseas, could be repatriated back into our country, used for an infrastructure bank. Again, we know we have a crumbling infrastructure. We know that we cannot fix that with major investment, and we have to have the funds to do it. That's one of the proposals I would have to help pay for that.
Can I address the mailers? Sure. My opponent continues to hit me on the mailers, and the part that she fails to point out, of course, is the fact that in our office, our salaries were around $300,000 less per year than our predecessor. I have 4 offices up and running for less than what my predecessor had 1 office. What I chose to do is invest less than 50 cents per constituent. I'm going to tell you a true, actual, real-life story here that happened because our mailers and our great constituent services by me mailing. We had a constituent who was in a bus accident in Mexico. And what happened was the family got the call and they said it's just a concussion, he's going to be just
Story
fine.
you told me about yesterday.
Well, a couple weeks go by, he's still there. The family goes over there. And they go over there and they realize that their father is being held for money and not to fix him. We got a call from their house off of one of the mailers that came to their house. Because of the investment that I make into our constituents, we were actually, after doing a couple of days of very, very hard work and telephoning and call after call, we were able to get her father airlifted out of Mexico into Texas, back to the United States of America. On December the 23rd of last year, I got a call from this young lady asking me to come to Davenport, Iowa to visit with her father. When I walked into the facility, she came up to me and she gave me a big hug with tears in her eyes and thanked me for saving her father's life. Had we not been communicating with our folks out there, and keep in mind, when we communicate, what we have to do is when we open an office, you've got to let people know in the area, here's the office. When we have a forum, you've got to get out there. And the big difference between our mailers that we do versus my predecessors is each and every one of those, on the back of them, they have a little checkbox where if you need service or something, or you have ideas from me, because I believe a lot of the good ideas come from the constituents, or if you'd like to be added to the email list so we can take you off the mailing list to save us money so we don't have to spend as much. That's not a whole lot of money to place on a constituent's life, and it's because of the mailer that they had. They were able to reach over to us, and we were able to actually get this guy airlifted out of Mexico. So I think constituent services, I'm keeping a promise I made. I was going to run constituent services second to none, and that's exactly what we're doing.
The average member of Congress spends $30,000 a year on constituent mail. $30,000. My opponent has spent $446,000. Number one of every member of Congress.
And I would remind the folks to take a look at the district that I currently represent, Illinois' 17th district, one of the most gerrymandered districts in the United States of America. It's pretty difficult for me to drive around throughout the entire thing. That's what's nice when the Illinois Democrats put this district together, a little more compact, so it's easier to get around.
And I've got a few questions from our viewers. Start with John Morley. He asks, given party division in the Congress, would you be willing to buck party loyalty and direction to support/vote issues you deem more important/beneficial for the nation? If yes, name a couple. If no, you are part of the problem.
Do you prefer one or the other of us to go first?
I went first last time.
Well, I would be happy to address that one, so thank you. And thank you to John Borling for that question. I think that this gridlock is absolutely out of control. I'm a very independent thinker. I have been my whole career. I've worked in the private sector. I've been in positions where I've voted on policy. And, it always has to be, the people that you're representing. And as far as examples, I'm not serving in Congress right now, so we would have to, we'd have to wait to see what proposals will come up. I can tell you there are a few areas right now. We mentioned one a little bit ago where I differ from my party and our president. Another would be I happen to be a supporter of the Keystone Pipeline project. That also differs from the president's view. So those are a couple I can throw out there right now. I do want to mention, though, for those who have concern about the Keystone project, that I don't support that in spite of the environment. I mean, we can't move forward on a project like that without keeping in mind that there are environmental concerns, and how can we best address that and still consider the environment as well. And I just have a kind of a part two to this answer, if I may. My opponent, Congressman Schilling here, has voted with his party 92% of the time. I think that shows that there's not a whole lot of willingness to go against his party. When he was asked to rate the Speaker of the House, he rated the Speaker of the House with an A-. And this is at a time when the American public is giving Congress an F. And, so I think that, we part of this is you got to look at the facts that